Well, good morning or good afternoon, friends, depending on where you're joining from. It's nice to see you here again today. Welcome to your State Tribal Educational Partnership or STEP program talking circle. Today is April 13th, 2022. We might have some other people joining us as we get rolling, but I'm going to go ahead and get us started since you all are here on time, and we'll make the most of our time to share and talk today. But first, let us begin with the standard disclaimer.
This presentation was produced under U.S. Department of Education contract number GS00F115CA with Synergy Enterprises, Inc. The views expressed herein do not necessarily represent the positions or policies of the U.S. Department of Education. No official endorsement by the U.S. Department of Education of any product, commodity, service, or enterprise mentioned herein is intended or should be inferred.
All right, there we go. Now that we got our business out of the way, here's a look at our talking circle agenda for today. I wanted to also just take a minute and congratulate those of you who are here with us today that we had full representation and 100% attendance at our webinar earlier this week related to our APR webinar. So thank you for coming along to participate in that. I promised at that event that we would have some time today to talk a little bit more deeply about some of the things that we talked about, in particular around partnerships and some of our GEPRA measures. I know we had some good discussion at that session, and we're going to make some time and space for you to chat some more today. And then we also have a fun little activity with a Kahoot a little later, just to make sure we're all on the same page and we all got the same the information right about APR reporting. So we try to make that a little bit fun for everyone. And then we've got some updates on some upcoming events that are happening. So how does that sound for everybody today? I see folks are starting to say hello in the chat box as well, and we've got some friends from the Connect tribe joining us now, so glad to have you here. Yes, welcome everybody. Please do continue to say hello in the chat box. And now that we've got a few more of our fellow grantees here, we can go ahead and move into some program sharing. You know, it's partnerships is something that that is vital to the work that you're doing. I know that you're also asked to report on the status of your partnerships in your annual performance reports. All of you are working in some way, shape, or form with LEAs as well as other organizations. And, you know, really, partnerships are like relationships. They kind of ebb and flow. They go through challenging times. Sometimes there's struggles that you have to overcome. So I thought we would just take some time now, and we can share about the health of our partnerships. And you see, I've got some 3 thought questions to kind of get us going and get us thinking about the status of our partnerships. And I thought maybe we could just take them one at a time. And go around the virtual table. So our reflection questions are, how would you rate the health of your current partnerships related to your STEP grant? And maybe share a little bit about why. Where are they on that continuum of health and struggle? What, if any, new partnerships have you established in this grant year? I know there's been a lot going on up there, and you hit some important milestones. So wondering if you have any new partnerships going on. And what have you learned about forming and sustaining partnerships in your work for this grant so far? Maybe you have some reflections or insights, things that you've learned since you've started this work now with the STEP grant that you can share with your colleagues. And we'll just go ahead, like I said, we'll maybe take them one at a time and just go around the virtual table. Is there anybody who'd like to kick us off?
I'll kick us off. This is Allison from the Blue Lake Rancheria. I would say our health of our partnerships is strong. We meet monthly with our partners at a steering committee meeting to go over action items that we had discussed at the previous meeting. And we usually check up with them throughout the month via emails on those action items, but it's like a recap of like, here's our action items. It's a part of our plan, do, check, adjust, continuous improvement cycle. So we have the meetings, and that is really how we can gauge how engaged our partners are. And we've had 100% attendance in each one of our meetings of all of our different partners in our CTI consortium. So that, I would say, I'd gauge it is good. New partnerships that we've established this last grant year, we brought in Eureka City Schools this past year to help recruit more teachers into the R3E program. And we've been, I've had meetings with their parent advisory committee, their Title VI Native American parent advisory committee meeting, to be able to reach out through them in the community, because through the first year of our planning and implementation, one of the strategies we came up with was identifying key persons in our community that would be able to get the words out to help recruit new teachers. People that might not think, because we went through the standard idea of, we'll talk to the teacher prep program at the university, we'll do this, we'll do that. But then we were like, okay, how do we get local people that we know will stay in the community, and this is how we do it. So we established that new partnership to bring in yet another parent advisory committee to reach a different sector of the community, because we had one parent advisory committee with Northern Humboldt Union High School District, so including Eureka City Schools High School District, we figured that would be able to get us a different set of parents, a different set of the community, a few different tribes in southern Humboldt area versus the northern Humboldt area, to help widen the scope of our recruitment efforts. So I think that was a good move. And what we've learned about sustaining those partnerships under the grant, copious amounts of communication, and making sure that you have the communication with the right person. For a while, we had been talking to this one person at the school, and she goes, maybe if you talk to this person, you'll get more of what you need. And we did, and bam, things just opened up. Also, not being afraid to say, hey, we need more from you. Because, we're trying to build these partnerships, but it can't be one way. And that's one thing I want to say that I've learned in forming and sustaining these partnerships. It can't be all give. We have to get something back from it too. While we've been strengthening the LEAs in our partnership, I was like, you guys need to support us more, because we are still growing ourselves, and we need to lean on them more for tech support and how to reach teachers and things like that. So asking them to give as much as they're getting and not being afraid to do that lets them know that we're on an equal footing, and that tribes are there's a respect issue also that I felt we needed to address. And so trying not to alienate our partners, but let them know that they need to treat us with as much respect as we're giving to them. And I think that ironing that out through interpersonal, Lisa's incredible with her interpersonal relationships and relationship building. So I think her being persistent, that's another thing I would say. You gotta be persistent. Absolutely have to be persistent, because one email is not going to do it. You're going to need 3, 4, 5 emails, particularly with principals that are also superintendents of districts. So if I've learned something about forming and sustaining partnerships, understanding that they only have limited capacity as well, sometimes the superintendent principals, but not giving up on them with just one email. Sometimes you got to pick up that phone too, although a lot of people don't like phone calls. But that's what my takeaway from how forming and sustaining partnerships under this grant project.
Allison and everyone, this is Shauna Ortega. I've been listening, and I'm kind of interested to know, and this is not just to Allison, but to all of you, what you think this COVID situation is, what kind of impact it's having in your partnership building when you apparently you have to sustain it through probably virtual meetings and phone calls as opposed to in-person meetings? Or have you started having some in-person meetings? I'd be interested to know what what each of you have to say about that. Thanks.
In response, Shahala, I'll tell you, we just had the policy lifted right before I went out on bereavement, where we could start meeting in person again. Until the end of February, the masking mandate in California was still in place, and then there was the masking mandate specifically in schools. And so we've been continuing to meet virtually, but I do believe we could be going back into in-person meetings, hopefully by summer, but we don't know with the latest surges that are happening here and there. We just, our tribe is being extra careful, and I will say that I think it has hampered us a little bit, being able not to meet in person, because people want to, it's important to actually meet in person. I don't know how to explain it, but there's a interpersonal connection with tribal people that you want to establish in person. And so I think that we haven't been as successful in partnering with more tribes because I haven't been able to meet with them in person as much. I've only gotten to meet with the Wiyot tribe chair once in the last year, and we were going for a meet in person once a month. So to go from let's meet once a month to maybe we can squeeze out once, and it was a very distant, socially distanced, weird meeting in person. So COVID definitely impacted our ability to meet more people. That's my 2 cents.
Thanks so much, and I can completely understand where you're coming from. And I agree with you that it's sort of one-on-one, sort of personal kind of contact is very important, but also health of each one of you is equally, if not more, important. So at some point, this COVID situation is hopefully will be resolved one way or another, and if that happens, not if, but when that happens, then it would be good to see what kind of effect you'll see in having face-to-face conversations with your partners and various other folks as far as your grant is concerned. Thanks.
This is Carl Chambly from Connect Tribe, and I guess I could go next. And we actually have been having face-to-face meetings, and I would agree it's just tremendously different and more beneficial to have the face-to-face meetings. And the persistence comment from Allison is right on, because folks are really busy, and it's so important to follow up with, the emails with a phone call. And in my case, we're able to go to the district office. I've been going to school board meetings and meeting with staff at those, and then just setting up appointments with maybe one department and then stopping by another department and talking with somebody. So we work with one school district. It's almost 20,000 students, so it's a pretty big school district. And I've had a pretty good working relationship with the new superintendent. He's been really open door policy and just friendly, and we just visit every now and then, and whenever I ask for something, a meeting or something, I get that. So we work with the federal programs office for the charter school. It looks like potentially the charter school will qualify for Title I based on our student count. So I've had phone calls this week with the Title I coordinator. I constantly am in contact with the federal programs director. We're working on a grant application for the NYCP STEP and a partnership along those lines. So we've got, multiple partnerships. The business and finance departments helped us with the budget, and the people in that department I've scaled our budget down, because I think originally we were hoping to have 300 to 500 students, and right now we're pushing 150. We've still have a couple months of recruitment that's going on. So I scaled down our preliminary budget for that, and they were thankful for that. I've been in contact with the food services department because we want to be the first out of, I think there's 8 charter schools here in this district. We would actually offer food services and have the food services department deliver those services in a commercial kitchen. So they're going to come tour a kitchen that we're hoping to lease to the charter school from the tribe that will be on the premises of the charter school. And if the work that I'm doing with the facilities department gets done, they're doing, you know, seismic and everything review of the property and taking a look at the plans for the tribal facility that's on that property, which we would lease a couple classrooms, and then we would put portables on that property. They're helping us with that. And so having face-to-face meetings with facilities, with food services, that one's just over the phone, but we'll meet and take a tour of the facility when it's completed. And FedPro regularly, you know, scheduled Zoom meetings or phone calls. And then also the HR department. So I just stop by and speak with the HR executive director to make sure our principal post for the charter school just went out. It just went out on Monday. So that will close in 10 days. And then we'll have a APC, we'll review applicants and start the interview process. And they're also supplying interview questions that we can kind of tailor to our own needs. So all those partnerships, you know, working parallel for that one big grant goal, which is to open a charter school, has been just terrific. And also the superintendent and the associate superintendent for business and finance agreed to do a resolution with the school board. And so I was at the school board meeting and had to speak on the resolution that would waive the RFP process for the location of the school, which would basically, the tribe has agreed and the CEO of the tribe has agreed to rent space at or below fair market value. And with that request, the borough is going to consider waiving the RFP process so that we can actually host the school on property owned by the tribe. So all those things are happening, but it's all about just like persistence and just having regular communication through phone calls, emails, and face-to-face has really helped that because it just helps establish a rapport, and the communication is so much more natural than a Zoom meeting when you're sitting around a big conference table and just discussing all the pros and cons and different scenarios. So I'm just super happy that, you know, we've got good working relationships over the course of the year with a lot of people at the district office. It's improved substantially, especially with the federal programs department. I have a different executive director this year, and she's just been super open to and willing to partner. So it's been very good for us. And I think Esther's still working on her CTE, workforce development, or, you know, workplace learning program. I think she has 1 student, and with COVID restrictions lessening, we expect to see more along those lines. So just one more update. Once we get the principal hired, then we'll be posting the teacher positions and recruiting for teachers. And we've had a lot of teachers that work across the state. We had a booth set up at the state basketball. Thanks to Esther, she set that up. We had a big banner. We purchased a booth space to promote the school. We had a lot of teachers that stopped by. They're very interested in the concept of a cultural charter school and working at one. So just that outreach and those partnerships are starting to really pay dividends. And, you know, fingers crossed, the borough resolution for the RFP waiver goes through, and we can start bringing in portables. And then I guess the next big partnership is working with the Anchorage School District, which is 50 miles away, which is 50,000 students almost. And they have, I think, 10 to 12 portable classrooms that they're looking at surplusing. And we should be hearing in May if we can have access to those and bring those out here to the valley, refurbish them and use them. Or if we have to do, if the tribe will have to hire a contractor to build 12 portable classrooms on the property. So a lot of things happening, but it comes down to those partnerships and people willing to see the vision and to support the vision and to really engage in conversations, technical conversations that hopefully will pay dividends. Fingers crossed. I don't know, Esther, do you want to add anything to what I said?
No, I think you covered it all, Carl. Thank you. I actually I made a comment in the chat. We had one student did some observations yesterday for work-based learning. Kind of got a little orientation. But COVID has definitely made it challenging.
Yeah, and within the tribe itself. So this big facility that's opening up is almost 10,000 square feet, but it's for supplemental programs, and it's going to have a daycare. It's got the commercial kitchen. It's got a couple classrooms for engineering and robotics and virtual. I forget what it's called, but it's like virtual learning for heavy equipment operation, airplane piloting simulation, a few other things. In that facility is that commercial kitchen. So within, like, I took a tour of the facility with the person in charge of the Choices grant, and he and I did a walkthrough, and we were discussing how we could share the space, and so then the daycare has the commercial kitchen. So that's the next thing, because they really want to protect that commercial kitchen, and they're concerned about access to the kitchen, and schools operate under the same regulations as daycares as far as access to the commercial kitchen and locking up their supplies and things. And there's a lot of resistance within that department, within the tribe, for that to happen. So I'm working on that also, but I don't expect it to be a huge problem because we have the support of the CEO and the education and training director. But it's just a matter of communication and trying to get on the same page with some people that, just feel like they own it and don't get in my space. But we'll work through that, and I think everything will be fine on that end. But yeah, so partnerships within the tribe itself, and then partnerships with our LEA. Yeah. I won't take any more time.
Well, you have a lot going on and a lot to share, and hitting so many milestones. And I really appreciated your point about the partnerships within an organization are so important too. Yeah, it's been a for me, it's my second year working in the tribe, so I still am learning a lot about how the operation and the communication and just the structure and all those things. So it's been a learning curve for sure. I'm much more comfortable with working with the school district, having spent almost 28 years in the school districts and understanding those systems. So I'm still learning some of the tribal operations side of things. Well, thank you, Carl. And I see you're getting some kudos and comments in the chat box here as well. So Kara, I want to give you an opportunity to share about some partnerships and in any ways that COVID has impacted the partnerships and operations in that respect. And then we can kind of open it up. And I'm sure some of you might have questions for each other too. You don't feel like you have to come through me to ask each other questions, but Carol, do you want to take a few minutes and share what's going on with VTech?
Sure thing. Hello, everyone. So right now we are partnered officially, have like signed MOUs and everything with 4 districts in Virginia. 3 of those districts have been secured, I guess is the word I want to use, within this year too. So we are well on our way to achieving our goal of, I believe it was 7 districts that we are aiming to work with by the end of this year. So we have 4 districts that we've held an initial meeting. Some of them I've held 2 meetings with. I've been popping out in and out of this meeting. So I heard someone else say that they've had multiple emails or follow-ups with other districts, and we're definitely seeing that same thing. I think tomorrow morning I have another follow-up meeting with one of those 4 districts that we're kind of waiting on where they stand on the partnership agreement, if they do want to move forward, if they want to, you know, get somebody else on a meeting with me because they've identified, oh, now we need our HR person, or we might want our social studies lead to be on this meeting or on board with us. So we're seeing a lot of that follow-up as well. We were able to actually hold some in-person meetings with one district, King William. They were our pilot district. So I know we've had, I think Ken, our executive director, he may have met with King William in person twice. I'm just kind of further away. So with some other meetings, I didn't have time to actually drive and get back and all that good stuff. But I was able to hold an in-person meeting with King William and all of the administrators to kind of showcase and walk them through the professional development that we have done. So that was fun. That was actually awesome. I think that was my first in-person meeting since I was with VTech. I know I've also met with Albemarle. They invited me to do some additional professional development with them. So even aside from what we've been doing, I've been invited to kind of take what VTech has already made about the Virginia tribal language, culture, and history, and they're asking us to build upon it. So I would say that has been such a great tool for us so far. Let's see, trying to think what else. I hit on the new partnerships. We are really hoping to meet some more folks in person. Again, it just depends on locale. For VTech, we all work from home. So being that we're spread out through Virginia, it does make it easier. So for example, Ken is closer to the King William area, so it's nothing for him to drive up and see a meeting, or we're working on building a partnership with Chesterfield County. Well, I live in Chesterfield, so I got to go down the road and actually did a working lunch with somebody one day, and it was just the best thing. I mean, who knew a working lunch could be so fun? But when you come out of COVID and you get to see a person and actually eat with them and share a meal, you know, it was awesome. So COVID has definitely impacted us in that in-person sense, but also I'm not sure how other states are with their current just education in general, but Virginia has really put a huge emphasis on math and English language arts. So I have one district that is just such an awesome partner, but our second goal is related to ACT work keys. Well, they've just outright said, look, Virginia suspended the career and technical education requirement for high schoolers, so we're not interested in that right now. So, hey, we've got to respect it, and we can say, I get it. I mean, that's not a big push. I was so grateful for my last principal when I was still teaching. He always told us, you really need to start with English and math for students because that's your foundation. You can't do science without knowing math first. You can't succeed in history without knowing English and language arts because you're reading. So I've kind of taken that mindset when I've worked with districts that'll just tell me like, no, we're not worried about work keys right now, or we're interested, but maybe next school year. So that's just another way that COVID really has impacted it. Everybody, I mean, from the state level down, identifies that students are struggling. And I know that right there is definitely nationwide. So I don't know what exactly your states have maybe suspended or what their focus has been on, but right now we have really had a lot of positive feedback with the professional development, helping with that teacher recruitment retention. So goal 1, but not so much luck with goal 2. And we've attributed that again to COVID, because career and technical education, aka work keys, all that good stuff, is just not a priority right now. So we have taken some steps with some districts in planning out when to implement work keys or when to look into it, because the district that actually told me no, they have teachers trained to outright teach the work keys curriculum. So they said, well, we don't want it right now, but maybe next year, maybe, whenever. So that's been a bummer, but just a minor setback. And again, something that's really out of all of our control. What have we learned? I would say that VTech got a great recommendation when somebody said, hey, hire Kara Canaday as the tribal liaison, because I have been the point of contact for our districts, for our tribal communities. And some of you already know via email or just on meetings or talking to me, I am not afraid to ask a question. I am not afraid to reach back out. I'm not afraid to circle back. I will get done what needs to get done. But no, we have really learned about that. Sustaining that partnership, you really do have to circle back. You really have to have those difficult conversations sometimes. You really need to tell those districts like, hey, I know you're not focusing on career and technical education right now, but maybe can I convince you? Maybe we can start planning for this spring. But just having those really difficult conversations. And we've been having those from the VDOE, so that state top level, all the way down to conversations with your everyday teacher. And that's something as well that we've been going through. Virginia, we have a completely new government right now. And with that change came, unfortunately, a lot of folks leaving the Department of Education. So we have built some awesome relationships with folks at VDOE, but unfortunately, we are now at a rebuilding point, because with the new government appointment, we've had a whole lot of folks at VDOE that don't agree with some things that are happening in our education system throughout the state. So they've quit. So that has impacted us as well, not COVID related, but definitely a learning curve, just trying to make sure we know where to identify, okay, well, we heard through the grapevine that the person in position ABCD quit. So where do we find out who's the new person? Who do we contact? So it's been a learning curve for a lot of folks. Since I come from the educational field, I know the VDOE website like the back of my hand. I can easily go to a school's website and find the principal or the head of a certain department. So it's been a lot of teaching my colleagues about things like that. So that's been a learning curve for some folks, but also a great indicator of the teamwork and the great team that VTech has built. I think I'm done.
A lot of great nuggets in there. Thank you, Kara. So does anybody have questions for each other or want to follow up on something you heard? Yeah, a lot of really great work. I agree, Allison. So many great things happening with your grant work. It's really inspiring to listen to it all. I was jotting some notes as I was listening to your sharing here, and the different things, lessons learned or insights or recommendations, that run around persistence, circling back and following up, transparency, being honest about your needs, not being afraid to ask for things. I think that's really important in a partnership, right? It's a two-way street, and it's a win-win for both. Finding the right person, finding the right champion. Gosh, I can relate to that, and I think that's such an important thing. Not being afraid to have challenging conversations or wade into difficult issues, and then also, recognizing the need for constantly having to renew those partnerships and sometimes rebuild those partnerships. So thank you for all of those insights and nuggets and updates. I did want to spend and give you some time to chat a little bit more deeply about your APR reporting and your GEPRA measures today. So as we move into that, I'm just going to lift up a couple of reminders. You know that the G5 system is open to get your forms. If you did join us for the APR webinar on Monday, we were able to give you copies of those forms as well. So hopefully you have those now. You can start filling them out and entering data. Of course, the deadline, end of the month, April 29th, 4:30 p.m. Eastern time. And I know you'll work to get ahead of that traffic jam, because the April 29th will be a busy day in G5. And I also did want to just lift up the reminder too. We know we covered this, excuse me, at our APR reporting webinar about the reporting period, because this is different than from some of the other OIE grants. So if you're dealing with multiple grants, just want to make sure that you are noting what your reporting period is. Okay. So here's a look at our GEPRA measures. And just, I know you know this already, but I'll just say it for the good of the order. You know, everybody in our current STEP cohort is reporting on GEPRA's A, B, C, D, and E. And so I thought we could spend a little bit of time just sharing how we approach these measures. We really broke it down in the APR reporting webinar, exactly what the ratios are and how to approach those. And we started some conversation, but we can open up the space now for some further discussion about these GEPRA measures. Maybe I'll ask, are there any of these ones that we report on that you particularly want to are weighing on your mind, or that you want to lift up to maybe make sure we spend time talking about now?
Education programs is, you know, we haven't added any education programs since the last time we did the APR. So that's something to think about. One of the things, well, maybe we're adding something soon, which would be tutoring in our new facility, before and after school tutoring for math and reading, especially gearing up for the summer. The LEA has the IEA funds, and they've set aside LEA and migrant funds to pay the tribe for tutoring services. But we're just, you know, our facility is at the tail end of being renovated. It's been a long 2-year process of renovating that big purchase, and but the doors aren't open yet, and there is some tutoring. There is some tutoring going on at our temporary facility. So I don't know, that's one thing. If there isn't a big change to the APR, how would we indicate that? Would we just keep the same APR and just add something from the last time, or how would you recommend we go about that?
Carl, this is Shala. You can always talk about what happened, and I wouldn't completely copy from your last year's APR, but you can certainly include, something about what you did last year and what you plan to do this year. So it's okay if you didn't get a chance to add to it. It doesn't always happen. Sometimes things take much longer than we anticipate. So, but if you share some potential planning information, what you think you're gonna, be doing in the next, I don't know, several months, that would be helpful. I think you talked about something that had to do with summer camp or summer programs. If that fits into it, that would be great. Just do the best you can. I'm the one who's going to read your APR, and I don't just go by, of the annual performance reports that you guys sent. I also go by all the good work you have been engaged in, and talk about during the talking circle. So talking circle is basically a sort of like a feedback to me as your program officer of what's happening, so that I don't just rely on some written, report that has to be submitted every year. So that's part of it, of course, but it's not all of it. So do the best you can, try to, sort of think about or write something about what you plan to do maybe next year, if not this year. And of course, COVID has affected all of you. And don't forget to kind of, include language in there so that it's understood why, certain things, take longer. And we completely understand that. So, does that help you? You're not under obligation to report on everything because you have to do everything this year. But so long as you share your plan with what you're going to be doing, if you don't get to do it this year, maybe next year, that would be great.
Yeah, okay, that is helpful because we are doing some preparation activities to really, with our tutoring program, we're working with the district so that our tutors are using the same supplemental programs and have, the district have the students have their passwords and we can access the same district programs at our tutoring centers. So we're not doing something totally unfamiliar with the students, but and the teachers, so that the district can see that students are logging in to their supplementary reading and math programs and accessing those. So we're in the process of identifying those programs and then setting up a system so that our students can access those from the tutoring center, those district programs from our tutoring center. So that's something that we could add to the APR. We haven't actually started the tutoring to that degree, to the degree we want to. Nothing's changed from previously, but preparations are being made to do.
Sounds great. Sounds great. That's perfect. That's
okay.
Exactly what I want to hear.
Yeah.
Thanks, Carl. How about some of the others here? Our team from Blue Lake or Kara, how are you defining educational programs for the purpose of reporting here?
I think this is the thing I spoke to you about on the last meeting we had, because I was trying to define them and you guys, well, no, you needed to, remember we were counting the educational programs. We talked about this, remember the APR meeting?
We started some conversation. Yep, that and the capacity building too. Mm-hmm.
Yes, and so when I'm looking at educational programs like with the Modern Youth Internship Academy, that's that overarching educational program that's the cornerstone of our STEP grant. And so when I think about that, underneath it, it has like these sub programs. Remember I was talking to you about the internships that are designed by the students versus the internships that are designed by our business partners. So we have the partners that we're creating in the community, that's one program. And then we have the encouraging students to reach out to places they want to work, so that we're encouraging students to take a leadership role, that leadership skills building and the confidence and self-efficacy building of that program. So that's a part of our social, emotional, career, soft skill building, like, networking part of our program. So I kind of see those as two separate kinds of programs, right? They're all under the Modern Internship Academy, but some kids want to work on their leadership skills and they go out and find their own internship where they talk to a business partner that we've approved and they say, I want to work in this and I want to learn that, versus the business saying, we have this we can offer. You know what I mean? So there are two different methodologies for creating these experiential work opportunities for kids. And so I kind of see them as the same but different educational programs, if that makes a kind of sense, because they're both focused on experiencing a work environment as an internship. So that, I would say, those are two different programs. Under the Modern Youth Internship Academy program also, we're offering the it's called general ed classes for California State University. So you get GE credits that get rid of your general ed, and it's under their general ed section. And we've developed these Science 100 classes that for students going into the STEM and tech fields, because Humboldt State University has recently turned into California State Polytechnic University Humboldt. So now they're a Cal Poly, and their focus is on tech and environment studies. And so what we did with them is they've developed for us as a part of this these STEM career exploration courses where the students participate in these courses and get university credit. And it helps them decide, what exactly do I want to major in when I go to college? I'm really interested in science, but it lets them delve into the different scientific fields of study that then what careers come out of that. So it's kind of like we're learning about what you do in college and how do you learn in college, but you're also, how do you apply that into jobs in the future? And they get college credit for it. So that's a part of our Modern Youth Internship Academy overarching concept, but that's a separate educational program. So I'm considering that another educational program because it focuses on a different thing and different students. There could be students that are participating in the business developed internship that don't take the Modern Youth Internship Academy STEM classes with Cal Poly, but there's ones that do. You know what I mean? So they can pick and choose what aspects of the academy they want to be a part of. So the next part of that, an educational program, is the mentoring portion of it, which we try and do these native maker workshops where they engage in TEK and doing an activity in a place-based setting. So they're learning beadwork, they're learning basketry, they're learning the mechanics behind caring for traditional homes, our plank homes, and the use of cultural fire and land maintenance through these educational programs that we developed. And they can participate in that, and that's a separate program. So I'm considering that as a part of Modern Youth Internship Academy, because one of the things we were focusing in that program is how they can embrace their culture and take it into their career with them as a asset, because we engage in asset-based assessments, right? We don't look at what you're lacking. We look at what do you already have within you that you can then appreciate and utilize going forward. So that's another educational program. So that's four right there under the Modern Youth Internship Academies. And what the STEP grant has been doing has been organizing our partnerships with all the different organizations it takes to get these experiences for kids. And then our NYCP grant is paying for those experiences by hiring the teachers, hiring the mentors, paying for the contracts with various partners, paying for transportation to and from the activities, while the STEP grant sets up all the partnerships and gets everything organized and recruits people and does all of the capacity building to bring the LEAs into our educational programs. So that separate one there would be a fifth educational program on capacity building for our LEAs that translate into student support services for our kids that then can learn better. So without us working with the Yurok tribe and their grants, we wouldn't have been able to hire a career counselor, which is something that just happened. So through the internship program we were piloting, we developed this next program, which is the job coaching program. So now this is a different educational program through our partners where students go and meet with a job coach and they practice interviewing, they practice resumes, they practice basic job skills. They learn about what it is to be an employee. Like they go through employee handbooks and they look about what employee laws they have to know about. Because we had, when we piloted the program, and what part of our Plan, Do, Check, Act was learning about what we didn't know. And so we learned from that we needed this special educational program for students that were going into internshipping. So we've got the internship, 2 different internship programs, the college program, I've lost track. We have got 5, but they're all under Modern Youth Internship Academy. So that's how we're counting it. Does that make any sense?
That's very impressive, Allison.
Because it's all interconnected, but we have different kids participating in different programs. So that's how I'm counting it. We don't make all the kids participate in all pieces of it. So I'm counting them as separate individual programs.
And you're basically talking about a variety of programs where these kids they can pick and choose.
Right. That is the whole concept. That is the whole concept, Shahala. Thank you for I'm glad I explained it because you understood it. Now I got that good. Okay, because that's the concept of the academy concept. They pick the things and design their own educational experience. So yeah.
Fantastic. I really appreciate it. That's extremely impressive. So great, thanks.
Yeah, thank you for sharing all that. And just, in terms of reporting, just using that space and the explanation of progress to really make it clear, like how you're thinking about, how you came to that number 5 would be key. So much going on. So Kara, I want to give you a chance to share. If you're with us, I know you're jumping in between meetings here today. But even if I'm not sure if you're the one who actually submits the reports for DTech, but maybe you have some insight about how your grant program's thinking about, and defining what is an educational program under your grant.
Yeah, so I probably am going to sound like a broken record, but the professional development is our educational program. So ours is a different approach, not necessarily for students, but the students do benefit from it. So the professional development, we want to make sure is a resource for teachers and a place for them to learn. So our pilot year, we gave some more information on the 7 federally recognized tribes. We really had the teachers dig into the websites, and we just picked out, I think it was like 1 or 2 questions per tribe, just for teachers to answer in the web quest portion of the professional development. But if we wanted to make sure it was a learning experience. So long story short, and again, sound like a broken record, but the professional development is what we are counting for the reporting as our educational program. We do use it as a tool in that recruitment and retention process, but that is definitely our main piece of educational program evidence.
Gotcha. Any questions for each other around the SCEPRON measure and how you're approaching that? Okay, well, let me, we have time. We can tackle another one of these that we want to make space for. Anybody care to nominate one where they'd like to maybe hear from others on the call here today, or want to just talk a little bit further? Maybe we didn't get all the way through it at our APR session.
Since we're talking about the APR a lot, I just want to let you all know, and I'm talking to STEP grantees now, that if you run into any issues when it comes to kind of putting some of this into words and don't quite know where to go with it, give me a call. If I can help you in any way, I will. And so I want you to feel comfortable about, your report, because it's important to sort of come from you. And this is something, that all grantees do annually. And I take it very seriously. To me, it's like becoming educated about, what is happening in your world. When I read these reports and attend these talking circles, it helps me understand where you're coming from, what you're going through in order to get to where you are. So Don't worry about any obstacles that you have to, kind of, you don't have to explain sort of yourself in terms of the challenges that you're faced with. I completely understand it. So to me, challenges are not failure, and they're just another way of looking at future successes. So do the best you can with your report. When it comes to reporting your budget, again, if there is any confusion with the dates and where you get the cutoff in terms of where do you basically establish a cutoff for reporting your expenditure and so forth, the only advice I can give you on that is that you really need to work with your finance counterpart in your tribe or TEA to make sure that you and them are on the same page. So I look at the G5 drawdown, but that's not the only thing I look at. I also look at the way you explain how you spent the money in your budget section to see if it makes sense to me. And I know that a lot of you have done quite a bit. So, and with that comes spending money, maybe not as much as you could, but that's basically part of it. So if you have carryover, again, it's quite understandable. There is COVID and you're going to end up having some carryover there. Just try to explain it and sort of talk about what you're going to do with the carryover. And if you don't quite have the exact amount of carryover, give the best estimate you can. Again, if you have any questions about your APR while you're working on it, just remember I'm just another, sort of helping hand out there to help you get through it. I've already I have made sure that the report that you have to work on is ready in G5 for your access. I don't know what you have to do, what screens you have to do in order to get to these report forms. But I think that one of the things that you have to do, and I shared that with Allison, is a screenshot of where you have to go to initiate your G5 report. If you run into any situation where you don't remember or don't know what to do with that, contact G5. If they don't respond, just let me know and I'll try to do the best I can to get you through it.
Thanks, Shava. Appreciate all that support. So maybe before we move on to our last activity of the day, since we did spend a little bit of time on Monday talking about capacity building, and we've delved into education programs here today, I'll just lift this GEPRA measure up for us, GEPRA measure D, around teachers recruited and retained, and we can just go around the table. I realize Allison had to step away, but we still have representation from the three different groups here today. So wondering how you all are thinking about evidence in terms of this particular GEPRA measure. I know sometimes the teachers that are recruited to serve your programs are hired maybe by you or through combination of partnerships, or employed by a different entity. So just wondering about that. Like, how do you know when to count somebody as recruited and retained?
I'll speak. This is Lisa K. Hoffman. I'm the Career Readiness Education Coordinator with the Blue Lake Rancheria Tribal Education Agency. I finally got some bandwidth. So Allison did have to step away. So I will try to answer the question to the best of my ability. No problem. So in terms of recruitment, there was a question asked before in terms of COVID, and that has really put a hamper into our recruitment process. And so what I've personally been doing is a recruitment tracker where it's on Google Sheets. So I would send, something out, saying, hey, we're doing something with the R3E program. And then I would have my partners update that sheet. So instead of emails going back and forth, it could be updated in real time. And then I can see, okay, Mr. Smith, he got an email, he responded, here's a link to the PDF he sent or whatever. Unfortunately, at this time, we have not recruited a teacher yet. I know that we had discussed about the value of partnerships. One of the two big things, we made a great connection with one of the local tribes with their language department. And then they in turn said, oh, let me have you speak to this person. And so that kind of solidified one of the partnerships. Number two, we have one of our friends who also is a STEP grantee from the Mashpee Wampanoag tribe. So we actually met with him in person earlier this week. So that's been wonderful. So meeting someone in person that's working on the similar grant, that's great. So the evidence of recruitment, I think COVID has really dampened the interest. And so in terms of recruiting these teachers, there needs to be an incentive. And, oh, you're welcome, Tracy. The school, the Tom Resilience Campus, also known as the Modern Youth Internship Academy, is supposed to open in October 2023. Construction is still kind of in the works. So I think folks kind of want to see like a building in process. I get that asked a lot. Have you broken ground yet? And no, we haven't. So, and that's unfortunately out of my scope. So, that has been a challenge, I will be honest. And also I'm originally from Los Angeles and I moved up here a year and a half ago. So I'm still acclimating to the whole rhythm of how everything works, and to, having that value of partnerships. There's also reciprocity. That's really important too. And putting it out there, like, we're here to establish this Modern Youth Internship Academy, and it's going to have the California curriculum standards, but with Indigenous teachers, Native American, First Nations peoples. And that is really exciting. And I'm hoping that maybe somebody has a unique twist in terms of like how to get to recruit teachers. I mean, it has been suggested to me that to do some tabling at events as we are starting to open up a little bit more. I think, if I'm out there with some flyers or some business cards or whatever, to put a face to it, because, you and I get like 900 emails a day, right? So putting more of a human aspect will kind of increase the value, at least I think. So that's my 10 cents on that. So thank you.
Thanks for sharing and jumping in, Lisa. It started to cut out just a little bit towards the end, but I definitely heard about the value. We heard you say about the value of in person and having a face to put and a voice to put with the name. Yeah. How about our folks from Connect or the Connect tribe or VTech? Anybody want to share how you're thinking about counting and how you identify maybe is not the right word, but how do you know when to count those as a teacher that is recruited or retained? Thanks for the examples, Lisa.
Yeah, that's a tough one because, one of the things, with opening a charter schools, we'll be actually hiring, a handful of teachers, if not 8 or 9 teachers this summer. But we did put a booth up like that in person with the flyer, with the big banner, and then we have flyers, and then Esther is sending things out. We have Facebook and we have a website, and we have ads in regional papers around the state, the Bushland Mailer and things that go out to rural Alaska. And then we're also in the charter school going to have an AK Rise program, which is basically a education pathway for CTE to grow your own teachers. But as far as like, we've hired, I think, one teacher at the Choices, and they teach, but I don't know if they're a certified teacher. A couple of the teachers that we hired are like type M teachers, which come out of industry and have industry experience, and they can get a type M teaching certificate for doing hands-on CTE type learning. So I guess what we're going to do is we'll count those teachers that we recruit and hire for the school, but we probably won't start that process, at least for a month. So it's not, I mean, it's a complicated deal. And by getting, our program out there and doing these advertisements, I'm sure it's garnered interest from teachers across the state, because we've had them stop by and talk to us. We've gotten emails, we've gotten resumes in the mail, in the email. So it's, how has it impacted the school district in their hiring? It's really hard to know, because we don't, they don't say, I heard about the school and I want to apply to your district or anything. So that's a question mark, I guess. This is a tough one. And then the school district does, send representatives out and does recruiting, but the tribe does not. So the school district sends recruiters out to Portland, Minnesota, Montana, across the country, basically. So I don't really have an answer, but I do have a series of issues that I'm trying to make sense of.
Yeah, and I heard you sound like you kind of hit on Lisa's comment too in the chat box, counting them maybe when they're hired or when you have a contract in place and that they've, you have then recruited them into the position. So maybe that's an indicator, but I'm also hearing that to be able to know that requires some conversations with the district too. Yeah.
And I think that's something we can develop a little closer. We do advertise, we are advertising for teachers here soon. And so we'll know specifically on those that we hire for the charter school that we recruited them and hired them.
Yeah, I know these things take time, and Olani's comment about the sooner you can bring them on and strengthen your program, the better, I think, comes from experience in doing some of this work as well.
Just an interesting kind of side note, speaking with the superintendent, he asked me what my experience was when I worked for the district. He's a newer superintendent. He asked me about, they've hired 16 new administrators in the district, and what my experience was in my 4 years at the district office as a director, how many people. And I said, I don't recall during those 4 years, most of the hiring was done from within the district for administrators. But so he told me that actually he had done the research, and there was 0% of the new administrators in the previous 4 years before he was hired came from out of district. And last year it was almost 20%, and then this year 35% of new hires came from out of district. So we're getting some fresh water in the pond, which is really good as far as administrators go, to get some folks that have outside experience. And several of those administrators came from rural Alaska. So I don't know what impact we've had in having them look more towards rural Alaska for their administrators, but I wouldn't doubt that there's been some impact, because that's a lot of conversations that we have both on the equity task force that I've had about getting people in with rural experience that can connect with kids, understand the village life, because we're the fastest growing district, and a lot of the students are moving to this district from rural Alaska, and the teachers that have come up in this system don't have, a lot of them don't have that experience and background knowledge to really serve those students. But that's just kind of a side note.
Yeah, interesting. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for sharing that, Carl. I want to Kara, did you have anything you wanted to add or thoughts that you wanted to share around this particular GEPRA measure, recruiting and retaining teachers?
It's definitely great to hear everybody else's way they're doing it, I guess. VTech did not have anything to report in at all last year in our year one. This kind of was, I guess, a bigger task than the folks who wrote the grant anticipated. But my thoughts have been, as you know, like I said, broken record. We have used the PD as a tool for recruitment and retention. So I guess this can kind of be a question for Shala. I've considered making part of the post survey in our questions, kind of adding at the end if the professional development and or the partnership between their district and VTech in any way does that influence them to stay within their district. So Shala, would a question like that on a post survey, post professional development survey, would that be considered a good piece of evidence to go off of?
I think you could do that. I think you could kind of use it as an example that of your effort to kind of address this issue. I don't know of any other examples, but if you come across other examples, you could include that too. Yes.
Okay, sure thing. Thank you. Other ways we've been thinking, so that's kind of the retention portion, but as far as recruiting goes, we are working with some of our districts. So for example, there is one district, Amherst, that I've been meeting with their HR, and they do want VTech to take a look at their hiring policies, processes. We actually did put a hiring, I guess, ad, you could call it, in our last quarter's newsletter. So Amherst HR actually sent us just a nice little graphic saying, hey, we're hiring. Here are positions we have open, and we're hiring for the 22-23 school year. So that was a part of our outreach, I would say, for this current year. And I'm more than likely going to end up putting that in the APR because we were able to get that word out. And then it would, again, be that conversation with Amherst. Hey, did you get anyone? Did anyone say that they applied because they saw A, B, C, and D? I also set up that district with some of the colleges in their area. So a big issue with recruiting teachers is, are there any? So that's one thing we've run into, especially Indigenous teachers or not Indigenous teachers who have that Indigenous background or understanding of, because I know a lot of the language in VTech's narrative is Virginia tribal language, culture, and history. So our PD is strictly related to Virginia Indigenous tribes. But we are working with colleges like Virginia Tech. I know they have a larger Indigenous student population. UVA is another one we've been working with. I know the CTE grant, they've had a lot of communication with our colleges here in Virginia, community colleges and four-year universities. But I've been working with the academic coordinator from that grant in just asking what colleges and community colleges they've been in communication with. And then if I'm able to set up any school districts with any of those colleges, community colleges that are in that area, so that they can get in contact with those teacher prep programs to see if there are any Indigenous teachers in the program, or is there anybody who even just came from an Indigenous more densely populated Indigenous area, were they around Indigenous folks? So we're trying in ways like that. So I did reach out to Lisa. I sent you an email. I did see your chat that said, hey, if you want more info, reach out to me. So it's been a little bit of a challenge trying to recruit and retain teachers. So I am soaking up any and all information I can get.
Oh, and I see you got some love there from Lisa up in the reactions. So, well, that's definitely a big issue to chew on, recruiting and retaining Indigenous teachers, or like you said, even folks that have that sort of background and experience. So, kudos for taking that on and the work that you do. And I'm glad you guys were able to make that connection here. So glad that you're able to follow up and have some conversations. Any other questions for each other around this particular GEPRA measure, things you heard you want to follow up on and comment on? Okay.
Oh, I thought of one real
Okay.
quick, sorry. So I mentioned the type M teachers.
Mm-hmm.
That would count as well as a teacher, I would think, right? They're certified teachers, so they're just type M. A type A is like a regular classroom teacher. A type M is the CTE teacher. Could we include the type M teachers? Because we did recruit one into our choices program in the last couple months.
You could, yes, absolutely.
Perfect, thanks.
Yeah, good question. Good question. And I know there are, if this is relevant for you folks, I know different states have different guidelines as well for recruiting policies and conditions, like similar to like a type M. You know, it might go under a different label to recruit teachers that do have that specialized knowledge that of language in particular is sometimes a special certification. There's special pathways. Okay. Well, we have just a little bit of time to get to some fun stuff here. So I did want to give everybody the opportunity for a fun little interlude to Kahoot. I think we've done some Kahoots before, so hopefully you are prepared and willing to play. But you can join either on your computer or on the phone, and you see on the screen there, if you want to go to the website, you can enter in the PIN. I'm going to go ahead and put the link. Oh, Olani's beat me to it. Thanks, Olani. She's got the link to Kahoot in the chat box and the game PIN that you will enter. You can also take out your phone and actually just use your phone to I'm trying to say your phone camera to scan that QR code too, and that'll get you right into the Kahoot system. And I see folks are joining us, which is awesome. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen while you're getting in and getting your nicknames set up. We've got Casey and Carl, and here comes Lisa. Awesome. Okay, so we'll go ahead and get started, and everyone's competing for bragging rights on the OIE STEP APR Showdown. All right, so welcome. Let's go ahead and start showing off all the skills and information that I know everyone's going to get 100%. First question: STEP APR is due April 29th, 2022. Got 2 answers. I think once we get everybody's answers in there. All right. True, you are correct. I've got 100% answered correctly. So thank you very much. All right. Next question, another true and false. The deadline is 5 p.m. Eastern time. True or false? Awesome. Everybody got that 100% correct. That is false. It is due what time? 4:30. Oops, sorry. I clicked. Oh. Can I go back? Sorry, I got a little trigger happy there. Let's go ahead and look at the next question. I have checked to make sure I can access G5 and the reporting package. Okay, if you haven't done that, you might want to just double check, make sure you can get into G5. And if you have any troubles, you can always reach out to G5 or your team if you have any questions. And just to go back to that other question, the APR is due at 4:30 p.m. Eastern time. Of course, you all know that. All right, quick peek at the leaderboard there. Carl, KT in the lead. All right. Next one is a puzzle. You can actually move these around. Place the steps for submitting your cover sheet in order. 4 key steps. This one might be a little bit tricky. Got the countdown going there. Oh, that's okay, Lisa, no worries. It happens. Computer's freezing up. We'll go ahead and reveal the right answer. So the order of operations for submitting your cover sheet, this is for if you're working in G5, right? Yes, at the session on Monday, we did provide you with the sheets. So maybe that looks a little bit different if you already have that form, but you can fill that cover sheet out in G5. And then when you get all that information in, it'll download a completed cover sheet form for you. So you can enter the data, download the cover sheet, and then you want to make sure that it's signed before you upload that completed cover sheet into G5. So just a nice little reminder for the steps to get that one done. All right, next question. Oh, and Esther joined us. Good, thanks to Esther. What is the reporting period for your STEP APR? Is it, all of our options begin with October 1 of last year? Oh, thank you. Okay. All right. It is October 1, 2021 to April 29th of 2022. That's a little bit different than the other OIE grants. So be sure when you're filling out your APR for STEP that you're reporting through April 29th of this year. Okay, very good. Next one is a true and false. I can actually add additional project measures based on new activities. I can add additional project measures. False. That is false. We're not adding any new project measures. Those have been locked in since our first APR. So we're not tinkering with any of the language on our project measures, nor do we change the language of our GEPRA measures. Okay, so Casey moving into the lead. All right, next question, another true and false. If a project measure was not applicable, I can omit it from my APR report. True or false? So I got 10 seconds to enter your response. All right, everyone who replied, you got it right. You can you still report on it. We still report on all the measures that appear in our APR report. Okay, another true false question. I think I might have given the answer to this one already. I can tweak the GEPRA wording to reflect my project. I can tweak the GEPRA reporting. Awesome, everybody got it correct. The answer is false. Very good. All right, let's see, Casey is still in the lead. All right, for GEPRA measures, what quantitative or numerical data is reported? So you see an example of a progress status chart there. What quantitative data are you going to enter for your GEPRA measures? Is it a target and actual raw number, an actual ratio, target and actual ratio, or none? Okay, I see we got 3 answers. I'm going to go ahead and take us to the, oops, no, I don't want to skip it. That's what I did last time. I accidentally skipped a question. 5 more seconds. Okay, so we had a couple of different answers there, but the correct answer is we're only entering in for GEPRA measures an actual ratio, right? So we're, even for the project measures, we're only entering ratios, no raw numbers. For GEPRA measures, we only enter in that actual ratio. That's what we broke down during our APR session on Monday. Okie doke, moving on here. Here we look at the leaderboard. Let's see. For project measures, what quantitative data should be reported? What numerical data are you reporting for project measures? Same options as last time. Got a slow reveal here on the screen. Two seconds. Okay, I'm glad we're having this little quiz here. So for project measures, again, only ratios, but this time both target and actual ratios. So target and actual ratios for project measures, actual ratios only for GEPRA measures. I know that's one that we see a lot of folks get tripped up on. So don't feel bad. That's why we're playing. All right. KC still on the lead. All right. Next question. I don't have data for a project measure until August of this year. What should I report? So we're talking about that section A in your project status chart. Your APR is due on the 29th, but you won't have a project measure data till August of this year. All right, awesome. Everybody got that correct. 999 over 999. Great. Keeping it moving here. All right, this one you can select all that apply. What's a great way to ensure I'm covering the necessary information in section B? Are you going to scan a copy of the budget, attend or rewatch the APR webinar, use the optional budget reporting tool, or have your fiscal office do it? A great way to ensure you're covering the necessary information in section B. There's still time. If you're mulling it over, you can just take a guess or about 10 more seconds there. I built these with a little bit more time so you'd have time to read. I didn't want to go too quickly. All right, 3, 2, 1. All right, the answer here, two options really. So if you selected use the optional budget reporting tool, or attend or rewatch the APR webinar, which should be up on the YouTube technical assistance page. 2 great ways to make sure you're covering all that information. All right, next question. Oh, we're gonna go ahead and keep it moving here, almost to the end. So if you need additional space to provide a longer explanation of progress, insert charts or add pictures, how are you going to go about that? Does it get added to section B? Does it get added to the executive summary? Are you going to add it to section C? Or are you going to send it in a separate email? You need additional space to provide information such as charts, pictures, or maybe more text related to the explanation of progress.
Tracy, I'm gonna help them a little bit. Don't email us.
I'm sorry, Shala.
I said I'm gonna just help them with this a little bit. Do not email it to me.
As we're waiting for the answer, there is a recommendation, and I see that those who
Oh,
did
great.
answer that one
What
got
a
a
relief. It's
add to
0
sec-
on the green. Good.
Okay. I'm seeing that it is near the end of it is exactly the bottom of the hour. So this is taking just a little bit longer than I anticipated. So I'm gonna just pause this for a moment, and because I want to be sure that we get it our end of session poll up, and you have an opportunity to answer that in case you have to run off for other meetings or other obligations. I also want to make sure that that you know what's coming up, because it'll be a little while before we have our next quarterly talking circle. We do have office hours coming up near the end of the month. That's pretty close to the end of your APR. And then, of course, the project directors meeting coming up May 10th through 12th. And some of you are actually going to be presenting, so thank you for that. We also want to announce that there will be a pre-conference session related to True Colors. This is a request that came up, that if you weren't able to participate in the past, you have another opportunity now to engage in this training. There is limited space, so there is a registration link there, which will drop in the chat box before you leave today, and you can register for that. This is going to happen prior to the conference on Monday, and if you're thinking you want to attend, we encourage you to register early. I'm going to go ahead and put that. Oops. Okay, okay, I'll get that into the chat box. But also an important announcement, the student artist competition, we've been promoting this, and we hope that you are also promoting this with students that you interact with. We have extended the deadline. Previously, we were going to cut off submissions, but you now have until the end of the month, April 29th, same day as your APR. You can submit those art submissions to us, and we will take a look at those. So yes, thank you. The deadline extended to April 29th. Okay. I'm not sure if that poll went up. If folks have to jump off, did we get that rolling? Okay. So there is a poll telling us, about today's talking circle and feedback that you have there. So if you do have to run off, we totally understand. But if you wouldn't mind, go ahead and fill that poll out before you leave. For those of you who are able, we can continue with a couple of questions here and finish out our Kahoot. If you do have a couple of minutes, you can give me a thumbs up. Otherwise, I can skip to the end, and hopefully that we've had some fun, and the Kahoot has done the job of making a few reminders for you. Kara can stay. Okay, I see we did get some responses to the poll. I appreciate that. If you're able to stay on with us here, I will keep us going with the Kahoot. Chris, if you have this on your phone and you have to continue to walk, you don't necessarily need to be on with us here on the Zoom call either. All right. Just a couple of questions here. Where can I go for assistance with my APR? If you're still with us, you can type your response. Is it the program officer, the G5 help desk, the TA team, or maybe all of the above? Two, three, two, one. All of the above. Perfect. See, you guys are going to be rock stars at this APR reporting. I know where to find data privacy policies for my organization. This one's just a true or false. Feel free to be honest. Okay, true, awesome. Both of you know where to find those. That's awesome. Okay, so I know a few of us had to go, but closing out now with another true or false question. I know how much has been drawn down from G5. Oh, one true, one false. Okay, so if you don't know, you've got a little bit of time to work with your fiscal office and make that happen so that you can get that information for reporting. Final question. I know you all know the answer to this one. I will have my complete, accurate, detailed APR submitted in G5 by April 29th. Of course you will. All right. Well, thank you for hanging out with us for a few extra minutes to play along today. Let's see, we're going to get the podium results here, but you're all winners in my book because you're doing great work. And if you need help with the APR, you can always reach out to us, your program officer, and of course, G5 can help you as well. So thanks, Kara and Carl, for hanging out and sticking around.